Good afternoon, and welcome to K2's Road to Excellence Part 3 and our partners Receipt Bank. This is Alan Salmon speaking to you from a snowbound home in Brampton, Ontario. We're currently experiencing a major snowstorm, and that may have implications for some of you. There's no school, and a lot of people have stayed home, and Marilyn and I are experiencing some slowdown in the internet, but we won't worry about that. As usual, a little bit of admin work before we get started. Marilyn Benninger is, of course, backing me up, and she is your go-to person for technical issues and for questions. Your microphones are muted for obvious reasons. You're quite free to take notes, but remember that within 10 days of today, you're going to get a recording of the webinar, my extensive teaching notes and teaching files, and all of the questions. And speaking of questions, you enter those, of course, through the chat window. At the end of the webinar, Marilyn will pull them all out and send them to either Damien or myself. We will send her the answers back, and you will get that in your package. Now, when it comes to CPD certificates today, it's a little bit different. Both Damien and I have 3 rather than 4, so you will need to be recorded as selecting 5 out of the 6 to qualify for 1 verifiable CPD hour. If you don't, it'll be non-verifiable. So on that note, before we get started, Marilyn, I need my first poll, please.
Absolutely. Good morning or good afternoon, folks, wherever you are. You'll see your screen should have changed to blue, and we're asking the first poll question. What version of Excel are you using? This will help us to determine the content today. We hope that you see one there, Office 365, 2019 or 2016, 2013, 2010, 2007. And maybe there's a few on the call that aren't using any of those or something else. Whether the answer is right or wrong, it just gives us a sense of who's on the call today. Nice, easy question. We've already reached our 90% threshold, so I'm going to count you down before closing the poll from 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I'm closing the poll now, and I'm going to share the results with you, Alan.
All right, I wish I had, Marilyn, I'd had room for one more, because the one more that I would have added would be Lotus 1, 2, 3. And you're saying, what? Well, as I think all of you know, we're in the middle of doing an extensive survey, and 2 of the respondents are still using Lotus 1, 2, 3, which I thought was a wonderful program in 1995. So moving on, Marilyn, let's go to the next poll.
Great. The next poll, folks, fast and furious. Have you used any of these Excel tools or functions? Flash fill, fuzzy lookups, that's a thing, equals aggregate, quick analysis, or maybe none of the above. Can't wait to see how these roll out with you in your content today, Alan. Everybody is quick off the mark today. We're already at 90%. Thanks for your responses. I'm counting you down from 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I'm closing the poll and I'll show the results.
Interesting. That tells me a lot. So back to me, Marilyn. So today, folks, I'm going to break with tradition. In the last 2 years, I have always, with very rare exceptions, shown you things that you could do in all of the available editions of Excel from 2007 up. Today, I'm going to show you 4 that you can only do if you're on Excel 2013 and 2016. And my rationale for that is that I do not want to, those of you that are on the advanced editions, to not understand some of the brilliant new tactics that are available, particularly in the area of what I call AI, artificial intelligence. So if you look at my screen right now, here's my objective. I want to join Mike and Henderson here, but I want it in the proper format, which means capital M, lowercase I, and so on. Now, I can do that with Excel formula, so all of you can do this. So we'll just copy this and dump it in here, and double click, and we're done. But for those of you on 2013 and later, this is way too much work. So watch this. And now watch. In the background, in low light, is the pattern. And all I've got to do is hit enter. And that would have done that whether it was 3 or 300,000. The name of that is Flash Fill, only available in 2013 and up. But it's amazing on what it can do with things like this. So notice here that I have a middle initial for some people. So I'm going to type in Joseph N, N Edwards. Watch what happens when I go P and hit enter. And notice that it wasn't a problem with Rose Mason. It did the join properly. How about this one? So not having a last name is not a problem. Oh, how many times have I said a bad word when I did a dump and I got this? Well, with Flash Fill, it's not a problem. So let's type in 907-555-7250. And now let's do A2. Bingo. That would have saved me probably over a lifetime, many, many hours. And by the way, if I had used brackets, they'd all have brackets. If I'd used periods, they'd all have periods instead of the dash as a delimiter. And then we get to this one. Now notice the delimiter here between between city and state is a comma. So this isn't a problem. Done. And notice Las Vegas is done properly. St. Louis is done properly. Fort Worth is done properly. Now let's do a final Flash Fill with this one. And notice now the delimiter is a space. And I have a problem. So how do I fix the problem? Well, this is amazing. I go up here and I type in Vegas and I hit enter and notice St. Louis and Fort Worth. So I find Flash Fill to be really useful. All right, let's move on to this. And that is what is called a fuzzy lookup. And let me clarify what I mean by a fuzzy lookup. I have two tables here with a common column or field: name, social security number, and compensation. And I want to join them together, but I have an issue. You see Andrew Sensini and Anabetics? Well, if we go down here, notice that in here, last name first, and in here, there's a junior. So if I did combine them, I would have 2 rows for Andrew, 2 rows for Anna, and 2 rows from anything else that's slightly different. So again, in 2013, Microsoft introduced a fuzzy lookup, and that's an add-in, and I'll tell you how you get it when I'm done this demonstration. So I'm going to go to a blank cell here, and you'll notice I have a fuzzy lookup tab, which very few of you have. And that will appear there as soon as you install the update. So naturally, I'm going to click on it. Only thing there is fuzzy lookup, and I'm going to double click. And over here on the far left, it's done the comparative. So it's identified. Oh, by the way, before I start, both of these data sets have to be formatted as a table. So the left table, SSN is the data. The right table, compensation, is the data. The left columns are name, SSN, compensation, and name. And notice the names are in blue because that's the identifier or the common field. And then down here, what do we want to match? Well, for output, I want the SSN name and the SSN. I want the compensation name and I want the compensation, and I want a column that will show me the similarity. And we'll forget about this for now, and I click on Go. Well, that's interesting. Let me just widen this out a bit. So notice the setup now. Nancy, Andrew Sensini. So it has organized both of the tables with the common name, but doesn't pick up Mario. It's blank. So over here in K is this what we call the similarity. And that's a value that Excel calculates that shows how close these are to being the same. And notice Nancy is 94%. Notice Mariah is 0. But I'm not happy with that. I want it to do a closer look. So I go down here to similarity threshold and I click. And the similarity is 0.4. I'm going to bring it down to 0.3 and click on Go. Why didn't it figure? There we go. And notice this time that it got Mariah, but it didn't get Christine Lee. So if we bring it down even further, there we go. So as we vary how close the match is, it will fill in the data, and you play with this. Now, do I use this? Yep, once in a while when I have something like this, and it sure saves a lot of time. Okay, so that's that. Moving on, I want to bring the rest of you back into the picture with this. Now, here's the deal. I've got a salesperson, a region, a product, sale amount, and a commission. And the commission is based on this logic. You only get a commission if you sell a boat that's worth more than $20,000. So that's an if statement. If product is equal to boat and sale amount is greater than 20,000, then the commission is 8% times the sale amount. And rather than screw up my typing, I'm going to show you the finished formula up here. And part of it is very illogical, and there must be a reason why Excel does this. But when we say it, we say if this is true and this is true, then do this. In Excel, we say equal if, and then we put in the conjunction and. So if C2 is equal to car and D2 is greater than 20,000, then D2 times H1. And there's only one match here. So if we go down here, it is equal to car and it is greater than 20,000, and it does the calculation. And I use that, well, not a fair bit, but a bit. Now, there is a companion to this called an or statement. So now the if statement, if is if product is equal to boat or sale amount is greater than 20,000, then calculate the commission. And again, I've got it completed. So in this one, it's equal to car, but it's not, sorry, it's equal to car, not boat. This one, it's equal to boat, but it's not over 20,000, but it still does the calculation. Here, it's not equal to boat, but it's greater. And here, it's equal to both. So two options in terms of doing this. And let's move on to a tool that I use a lot. So I have a simple list of items here, apples, oranges, and so on, and I have their price. And in this case, I want to know the sum of just the apples. Well, I could use equals sum if, bracket, and then that range, comma, what do I want to look up, comma, and that range, and I get the answer. However, in cases like this, I'm going to do this. I'm going to select apples, and I'm going to go up here to formulas, and I'm going to define a name. And I'm going to call it item. And the range is A2 to A10. I'm going to do the same thing with this. And I'm going to call it sales, and it's B2 to B10. Now that I've done that, watch. Equals sum if, bracket, item, comma, apples, comma, sales. Now you could argue that either way is about the same amount of work. But in larger, more complex spreadsheets, I would argue that defining names makes it very easy for you to develop complex formulas. So my allocated overhead is $345,000, and the executive piece is C2 times exec. Well, exec is a constant stored as a named range. So let's assume that accounting and finance is 25%. I'm going to go to Formulas and define a name. And we'll call it Accounting and Finance. And it's equal to 0.25 times this. So now I go and I type in equal, and as soon as I hit A, there's Accounting and Finance, and there's the answer. So if I'm going to use numbers over and over again, like a tax rate, etc., I'll just store them as a named range. And then defining named range can be a problem. So let's look at this solution. So I want all of these individually to be a named range and all of these individually to be a named range. So the solution is pretty simple. I highlight that. And then I go to the Formula tab and notice what I've got here. Create from selection. Done. Top row, left column. Yep. So if I go to the name manager, pretty simple. And next, I want to show you again a formula that came in 2010 called the aggregate. And it's very similar to the sum function. So I've got this here. And notice that I've got two error messages here. Well, if I tried to do a sum, I'd get an error message. But if I go equal aggregate bracket, then it wants to know what I want to do. So I'll double click there. I want a sum. And then it tells me or gives me, what do I want to ignore with all of these choices? I want to ignore row values, which is a 6. And then where's the data? There we go. So do I use aggregate a lot? Well, sometimes I get dumps where I've got some error messages and I don't care about them, and I'll use equal aggregate. And to wrap up today, I want to go here. And again, there's nothing magic about it. It's a table. Notice I've highlighted the data. Like so. And many of you may have noticed that down in the bottom right-hand corner, I get this. And if you explore it, that calls up the quick analysis wizard. And it's really a simplified and very fast way of doing conditional formatting. So if I want to see data bars, color scales, icon sets, greater than, and if I do that, hang on just a second, I want to change this to here. And now I'm going to do greater than. So greater than what? Let's do 100,000. And there we go. Then if we go back here, I can do the same thing for charts. The same thing for totals, the sum, average count, percent total, running total, and so on. And then finally, I'll go to spark lines. And spark lines are really individual charts in a single cell. So watch what happens when I click here. Or go back to here, and let's do it as clear the format. Let's do it as spark lines. And let's do it like this. So now the width of the bar is the aggregate of what that total is compared to there. So there we go, Marilyn. That's my piece for today.
Well, Alan, if you're wondering what that knocking sound is, it's me banging my head on the desk for all the time that I've wasted using the things I didn't know before today. So thanks for sharing your expertise.
All right, we need the last poll, please.
All right, folks, we're going to be launching your last poll. Have you used any of these Excel tools or functions? That would be inquire, linking a table into a Word document, data validate, EOM or EOW, or maybe none of the above. And I suspect that Alan's asking in reference to a future webinar that we'll be holding. Everybody is excited for your content, Alan. We've already reached 90%. So I'm going to count you down before closing from 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I'm closing the poll, and there are your results.
Well, I probably should have written this out when I said equal EOM or EOW. That stands for end of month or end of week, and we use it in date arithmetic. So I have good news for those of you on 10 and 7. When I do my next one in a couple of weeks, there will only be inquire that you can't do and so on. So that's a wrap, Marilyn. Let's bring in Damien and Receipt Bank.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you very much, Marilyn. Thank you very much, Alan. I'm showing my screen and going into presentation mode. So
you have the comm.
Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for taking some time out of your day, and thank you very much for having us. My name's Damien Greathead. I'm here with my colleague Ryan Maguire, who I'll be handing over to momentarily, to talk about Receipt Bank, particularly as Receipt Bank as this engine for driving new services, for expanding services in bookkeeping and accounting services that you do provide. We hear that there's a tremendous opportunity for accountants and bookkeepers to help their clients better understand the numbers in their business, and maybe for actually some of the bookkeepers and accountants in private industry at the moment to look at additional ways in which they can help business owners, help managers better understand their numbers. The vast majority of people on today's call, you've got unique ability in that you can tell a story from numbers, whereas a lot of the business owners and managers don't. And so really what we want to do is we want to look at how can we help the people, help the stakeholders, whether they be our clients, whether they be our accounting departments, employers, better understand the numbers that we prepare for them. So the learning objectives today are pretty simple over the next 20 minutes. We want to understand the key deliverables of a controller engagement, learn how to sell or pitch those controller services to clients and prospects, and then I'll hand over to Ryan, who's going to take us through some of the core technology for efficient service delivery. So the opportunity is huge because there's a gap between bookkeeping and advisory, and there's a gap between what actually clients or managers do with the numbers that accountants and bookkeepers prepare for them. I once heard in a presentation a business owner or a client wouldn't know a good P&L if it hit him in the head, but they understand if there's cash at bank or if there are bills to be paid. And so really the role of this virtual controller is to help clients better understand what the numbers mean for their business, what exactly is happening when it comes to their cash flow, when it comes to their budgets, when it comes to budget versus actual, their forecasts. And given that the small, medium-sized business is the backbone of the Canadian economy, of the global economy, in fact, it's really important that we are able to share the skills that we've developed in bookkeeping, accounting, and help business owners better understand what the numbers actually mean in their business. So these small, medium-sized business owners, they may not have the time, or the budget rather, for a full-time controller, for a full-time CFO. However, we can certainly look at ways in which we can help them better understand their numbers through these virtual CFO, virtual controllership type services. And that's going to enable you to grow your services, grow your firm, maybe grow the side business that you've got beyond the traditional debits and credits. What we find is there's this gap between what the bookkeeper does and then how we translate that information into something that's useful for the actual business owner. And it's where bookkeeping and advisory come together that we see this virtual controller role present itself as a huge opportunity. But before we do get to that virtual controller, we've got to make sure that the debits and credits coming in are clean, because we know the old adage, garbage in equals garbage out. And more often than not, the bulk of time associated with controller type engagements, the bulk of time associated with bookkeeping engagements is actually just cleaning up the information coming in from a client, cleaning it up from a department, that information coming in. So what we want to do is we want to look at, can we control that bookkeeping phase? Because if we can control the bookkeeping, that means that the information coming into our accounting systems are going to be infinitely cleaner. An enormous amount of time as well is spent chasing the client, chasing the manager, chasing the department for additional information. What was this expense for? What department is it associated with? What location? Is it billable? So there's a lot of time spent just organizing all of the information. And so what we want to look at is how exactly can we leverage technology, improve our systems and processes, but take control of the entire bookkeeping and accounting process to then be able, or so that it then enables us to provide virtual controller, virtual CFO type services. So what do I mean by virtual controller services? Here are some of the different things that we've identified that separate a bookkeeper from a controller. Cash and accounts payable management. So is that done weekly, bankly reconciliations, detailed cash flow forecasts? That's a part of the cash and AP management. You might be doing it for some of your clients. You might be doing it for some of your departments. So now is an opportunity to identify what are the deliverables that we can be providing to more and more of our clients, to more and more of our stakeholders in our business. Close management, oversee the in-house and outsourced accounting staff to close the books quickly and accurately. A big component of the close management is proper recording of accruals. So this might be an option where the actual client has in-house bookkeepers, but our outsourced controller level services actually oversee the close management, just to make sure there's that third party reviewing everything. Obviously, some level of dashboard reporting. Fathom HQ, Spotlight, Futurely, these are great tools that enable a level of reporting. So let's look at what tools we can use to review the performance of the business. What are the ratios that we should be looking at? What are the financial and non-financial key performance indicators? And being able to report on these key performance indicators and then have a discussion around what we call the flux analysis. I think that's really where the controller, this virtual controller service, can have a huge impact in their department or with their business. So if you're a bookkeeper, accountant that's trying to move into this type of controller role in your company, budgeting and flux analysis is the perfect place to start. If you're looking to try and develop your relationship with your clients to show that you can do more than debits and credits, then budgeting and flux analysis, again, is the perfect place to start. So basically, we're looking at the budgeting process. What does that actually look like? And then what we're doing is the actual versus budget. So that report is what we call the flux analysis. And that conversation around the flux analysis is, I think, where accountants can bring an enormous amount of value to the table. Equity management, company shares and options, etc. If some of your clients are growing from startup phase to bringing on investors. And then last but not least, payroll and HR is another tremendous opportunity for you to provide additional services and additional advice to your clients. Now, you might want to partner with somebody to provide that, or alternatively, you might want to outsource that if that is your current function and it's taking up an enormous amount of your time. But here we have 6 specific deliverables associated with a virtual controller service. Some of you might be controllers already in your company. Which of these services are you providing? Are you not providing? What ways can you bring more value to the table as a result of adding some additional deliverables? And alternatively, for those folks in public accounting, you're probably doing this for some of your clients. Are there more of your clients that you could help as a result of adding these services? So what prospects are the best fit for a virtual controller? So these are the types of, that, as I said, they don't have budget or necessarily the need for their own controller, their own CFO, but here are some of the signs that a prospective client might be ready for virtual controllership. And they might have raised some VC money, so the investors are looking for a much more robust level of reporting. The company is audited, or they're preparing for their first audit. They want to have proper monthly financial review meetings. So they want to sit down with the board, sit down with the investors to discuss what's actually happening in the company. They might need accrual-based accounting or GAAP financials, another indicator that they're ready for virtual controller services. They might have complex reconciliations such as deferred revenue. And again, this is where they might need a more experienced accountant compared to an in-house bookkeeper or a part-time bookkeeper. Typically, we look at about $5 million or more in annual revenue. That seems to be about the right revenue number of bringing in a virtual controller. 20+ employees, again, a typical indicator that a firm is ready for a controller level of service in their finance department. If cash flow is a problem, they might be good candidates for the VCFO. Difficulty managing receivables, probably closely tied to difficulty managing cash flows. And then another indicator is that the accounting staff aren't able to close the books timely or accurately. And that's essentially impacting all of the above in terms of getting good numbers, good financial reports, having good discussions with investors, raising capital, making sure that there is enough cash flow within the company as well. And then last but not least, a firm might be ready for a virtual controller if they're having trouble hiring or retaining their controller. That might be where a third-party virtual controller comes into play. What I would encourage you folks, if you are providing these services, we've got to go beyond the hourly billing model, and instead we've got to move to fixed fees and value price. So we've got to look at the value that we bring to the table. For example, think about the going salary of a controller. What sort of value are we going to bring to the table? So let's make sure we price based on the value that we're bringing to the table, and we can compare those to the signs that a prospect is ready for virtual controllership. So it's really important that we move beyond the hourly billing, because we bring a lot more value to the table than just that, than just the hourly billing. So look at the number of transactions happening in the client's business. Look at the type of KPIs, the type of information that you're bringing to the table. The flux analysis, helping them with their cash flow. That's incredibly valuable. and it's going to be significantly less than hiring in-house personnel to complete those deliverables. So folks, what I'd like to do now is I'd like to hand over to my colleague Ryan, who's going to talk us through the technology stack for a virtual controller service.
Thanks, Damien, and thanks to Alan and Marilyn as well. So my name is Ryan McGuire, and I'm a new partner consultant here at Receipt Bank. And I'll just be showing you a little bit about how we partner with firms to achieve greater productivity and profitability. So what do I mean by a tech stack? Start by looking at the core functions in your bookkeeping process. There are bills and receipts that need to be processed, payroll that needs to be taken care of, and potentially the time that needs to be collected before that. All of that then goes into a general ledger for processing and reporting. This is the basic workflow based on different functions in an accounting firm and the different sources of data. With the process mapped, as you can see here, we can now ask what technology is available to do the heavy lifting of that day-to-day data processing. And here is an example of some of the most popular applications that are out there. Receipt Bank collects all the expenses, the receipts, all the bills, and the invoices, credit notes, anything you can think of, and sends it over to the general ledger. Pluto takes care of bill payments. T-Sheets will collect the time and put it into a payment evolution. And all of this data flows down into the general ledger. And then an example is Fathom as a reporting tool at the end. This workflow, when used with 1 and 2 clients, we're going to see maybe 30, 40, 50, maybe 60 minutes of savings per week, maybe per 2 weeks or per month. But when you apply this across a broader client base, all of a sudden across 20 clients, now you see up to 20 hours per week freed up. This is really where you start to see the big time savings when you let the technology do the heavy lifting to eliminate all the duplicate data entry, document management, and eliminate chasing clients for answers. The technology stack talks to each other and data flows seamlessly between them. I'll show you what I mean in a brief demonstration here. So here in the Receipt Bank dashboard is where you, as the controller, accountant, or bookkeeper, can access your client's documents and process them in a more time-effective way, and really start to provide more value back to your clients. In this one client's account, so this is a hypothetical client called Coco Cafe. There are 4 different ways that Receipt Bank can process documents. The first is through our biggest and most productive tool is the mobile app, which we have available for the iPhone and Android. And over 50% of documents in terms of volume from our partners are coming in from this submission method. So think about how easy it could be for your clients to just take a picture, snap it, and submit it. You can start pushing that data into their ledger. The next biggest way in terms of volume of documents coming into Receipt Bank is this tool that we have called Invoice Fetch. Over 2,000 suppliers we can link with. Think your Rogers, your Bell, TELUS invoices, Home Depot, Amazon. If some of these clients pay Google for advertising space, all they have to do is simply connect that supplier, and then they can basically have hands-free publishing anytime that a transaction is posted in that account. Additionally, we offer an email in function where clients can submit, whether it's in the body of an email or as a PDF or JPEG attachment, can submit directly into a unique email in address. And then it can also choose the scanning and uploading feature as well. So 4 different ways of getting documents into Receipt Bank. You can see right here that we can basically separate all these line items. As we know that in Canada, you have a different tax code, and in the United States, it's a bit different. So this is one feature that is distinct to Canadian accounts, giving you the freedom to edit line items sort of unlimited, with unlimited authority. Your job in Receipt Bank is to simply publish things, as Damien said, sort of effortlessly into the ledger so that you can get that time savings back in your day. So for example, this document is just an Uber receipt. Again, this was in the body of an email, just simply pushed into Receipt Bank via the email in function. All you have to do is verify that this information is correct and publish this into the ledger. Let's see if these. We'll try a different document. As I said, all you have to do is push this into the ledger. For some reason, it's a bit backed up. Essentially, as you can see, we've had a couple of technical difficulties here. The biggest and most productive thing we can do, here we can go, thank you, Damien, is publish these documents into the ledger seamlessly, effortlessly. As you can see, that was a bit of effort on our end, but basically all of this information will be published directly into online based ledgers, QuickBooks Online, Xero, Sage 1, Business Cloud Accounting, and we are working on some other desktop integrations as well. As you can see here, Receipt Bank will pull off all the data. So we will extract everything from this document. We will extract the currency, the tax amount, the total amount, and place that in the correct account for your clients. So things are being categorized, coded, while you can do other things. So we kind of are a 24-hour employee with over 99.9% accuracy. So things are coming in over the weekend, when businesses are closed, being read, so that all you have to do is publish them directly into the ledger and can provide some more value to your clients. The last piece of the Receipt Bank tool that I'd like to show today is the Audit Ready Archive. So for folks who have maybe gone through a number of audits, for some people who may think that could, potentially that's happening now, or for people who would like to add that added level of business insurance for the future. Receipt Bank has an audit-proof archive, so we encrypt all your clients' data and information with bank-level security. So if the CRA comes knocking and wants to see meals and entertainment costs from a couple of years ago, you can use this filter right here, give the date range and the category, and publish this to a PDF document, which then you can turn over to the CRA, right back to work. You don't have to spend any time going through old files and things like that. Receipt Bank is, in essence, as well, a virtual filing cabinet for you. That pretty much concludes the visual of the Receipt Bank tool. I'll turn it back over to Damien, and we'll conclude.
Ryan, thank you very much. And Marilyn, why don't we ask a poll question around what apps are people using?
That's a great segue. Thank you, Damien and Ryan. So folks, we have our fourth poll question for today. Wanting to know which apps you are using in your firm or your business. Could be Receipt Bank, Payment Evolution, Pluto, QuickBooks Online, or Sage Accounting, or potentially none or others on today's session. Everybody is quick off the mark today. We're already at 90%. Thanks for your responses. I'm going to count you down for closing the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I'm just going to close that. Can you see the results, Damien?
Yeah, I can. So excited to see. Well, sort of interesting that 56% have said other or none of the above. And so folks, if it is something else, pop that into the question section so we know which apps you are using. Delighted that there's a few Receipt Bank users on today's call. And I think the important thing is the adoption and the willingness to adopt general ledgers like QuickBooks Online, like Sage Accounting. It means that the types of services that we've been talking about, they are enabled. The tech stack that Ryan was talking about the information's flowing in real time. So we eliminate that duplication of data entry, all of that time spent chasing documents, querying documents. All of that happens as a result of these cloud integrated tools. And I think that's the exciting opportunity for today's audience to recognize that they can take advantage of that. So Marilyn, I'll just finish off and just encourage anyone that would like to learn more, do a one-on-one with us. Learn how Receipt Bank can work in your accounting and bookkeeping firm. There's if you're an accountant or a bookkeeper in a small business, there's a 14-day trial on our website which you can get involved with. But if you're an accounting firm or a bookkeeping firm and you'd like to do a one-on-one with us, it's about 30 minutes, and to say thank you, we'll give you a $100 Starbucks gift card. So Marilyn, maybe that last poll there of finding out if anyone's interested in learning more about Receipt Bank's accounting partner program.
Terrific. So folks, I'm going to be putting up 5 polls in total today. So that will mean that your verified credit will come from 4 or 5 answers. So this will be the last one for today. Getting a sense of your interest in the Receipt Bank's accounting partner program. Lots of great technology happening in our profession, saving us time and getting us back to using the real skills that we joined the accounting profession for. So on a scale of 1 to 5, very simple question. We're already at 90%. I'm going to count you down to close the poll from 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I'm going to close the poll, and let's show those results. Damien?
Wonderful. That's great, Marilyn. Thank you very much. Great to see that there's a few Receipt Bank partners there already.
It is.
A couple of things. I forgot to tell you that for those of you that want to use Fuzzy Lookup, you've got to do the download, and the download link is included in the section in my handout dealing with Fuzzy Lookup. And on that note, Marilyn, it's a wrap. I hope to see most, if not all of you, in a couple of weeks as we do version 4.